information at the moment. So if you like this type of content, just let me know below. A major claim of many today go something like this. We even see people like Richard Carrier, who are historians, that try to describe this. They say something like this: Christianity was spread by the sword, and it only thrived when it could wipe out other religions by force. However, according to historian Tim O'Neill, and I'm also using other sources like David Marshall, and I'm using quotes by Rodney Stark. So what do these all say about it? They say, quote, Christianity did not mostly spread by sword. Constantine adopted Christianity because it had already become the strongest spiritual force in Rome. By caring for sick, treating women well, and showing encouragement in the face of death. Showing courage in the face of death. Christianity has always been the strongest in a free market of faiths, like modern America, Korea, or modern China. To help, even Islam is not the most intolerant and warlike religion in history. Think of the Aztecs, or Taipings, or Jim Jones, or even Hitler and Vladimir Putin, or Vladimir Lenin, who really fit this description of ideas that were spread by literal force and evil. We have many Roman sources speaking of getting rid of Christians and people like Epicurus. If we look briefly at history to see some of these actual events, we'll use a few examples to describe what I'm looking at. When you look at the Roman and European Christians, according to Rodney Stark, Constantine converted in around 313 AD, and only about 10% of Rome had become Christian at this point. Christians were persecuted, and there was no forced conversions. At this time, Christianity grew 40% per decade. Through the 4th century, Christianity was spread by mouth, for the most part. You can also see this in sources like Augustine's Book of Confessions. After the Islamic conquest in 622 AD, for the next 1400 years, Christianity in the Middle East was mostly transmitted from parents to children rather than by military force. Millions of Muslims become Christians today, not because of force, but by free will, and they are usually very strongly persecuted in these Middle Eastern countries. We can also look at the example of Chinese Christians. Christianity spread to China in about 4 waves, according to most historians. All were done without military force. We can even see that the Catholics spread into this area around the 16th and 17th century. And then we see in the 1900s, we see Protestants go to China as action versus the Kingpin government. Missionaries did not use force. Christians were persecuted there. You can see this in the early 1900s of the Boxers, who killed tens of thousands of Christians. In the 20th century, Christianity was discouraged, and there was some 70 million Chinese are Christian, and they have to do it in a hidden context. In today's age, they do not go to church in the same way that us in America do today. They have to hide their faith. We can also see in other cultures, we can actually see some of the opposite examples of what I'm describing right now. You can see some cases where some Catholics or Christians did use force, but these are very minuscule in comparison to all of the other cases. So we can look at some of the European Christians. We can see some of them did it, but we also see just as much evangelical methods just as well. This is all throughout the Middle Ages and whatnot. Then again, in Latin America, this is probably the best example that someone could use to show that there was some forceful conversions, because it's not that there was none, but the vast majority of Christianity was always spread by peaceful conversions. We do see, like I said, conquistadors and whatnot do this throughout the times, and the colonists and whatnot. But if you look through the entirety of all of the history, you can see that it'd be really hard to put a number on it, but it'd probably be something to the lines of like 80% was spread by peace, and maybe I'd even say more, and I'm probably undercutting it by a lot. I'm just trying to make it really open here. But you can also see this again in the other European areas, and then again in North America. Obviously, Christianity spread through North America primarily through immigration, education, and evangelicalism. Very small occasions of force have been seen historically here. Obviously, we can see this within America, our America, and then we also see this in Canada. In other cases, like the African and the Indian Christians, the vast majority of them were also freely choosing Christianity, outside of the case of Gao, where the Catholic inquisitors forced the population to believe. Even Korean Christians accept it freely. So if you look at it all together, I think we can make a really strong case for what I'm describing here. Of course, there are examples of really bad Catholics and really bad Christians going over and taking these things from people, but you can see the vast majority of Christianity was always spread by peace. Thanks for watching, and let me know what you guys think below.